am really fascinated with the possibility that matter is self-organizing, and that critical challenges that face matter, and we're matter, by the way, and we're pretty self-organized here. And the theories of life, by the way, are fascinating right now. Stuff that's coming out, Mei-Wan Ho and people like Lynn Margulis are proposing and putting forward ideas about what constitutes a living organism that are fascinating. Eco-philosopher that I love, David Abram, goes so far as to say that ideas are like living organisms. And sometimes they're not meant to be domesticated. They just hover at the periphery of your mind like a deer in a meadow, and the minute you try to capture it, off it goes. So he just has this wonderful way that he tangles with ideas. And I wanted to just share with you an idea that has sort of lingered in my peripheral, and I'll share it with you, and we'll see if it can be tamed or not. But I'm really intrigued with this idea that matter can be self-organizing. And a few examples that I always think about, the Mechanist worldview says we are here by a series of incredibly lucky coincidences. And I'll share with you just a handful of them. When the Earth first was molten and forming, all the heavy metals sunk to the core of the Earth. However, our bodies contain, as you know, iron. Do you guys know where the iron in your bodies came from if every single heavy metal sunk to the core of the Earth during its molten period? Where on earth do all the metals on the Earth come from? David? Well, there was a meteor shower that lasted about 30 million years. And it was a massive meteor shower that was caused by a slight shift in Jupiter's orbit. And then a reshift, all the meteors were sucked back out. And so it was as if all the metals were gone, and yet the universe sprinkled a little more metal on the Earth. Another amazing thing that happened was, in order for us to have evolved from our ancestral protozoa, from our ancestral prokaryotes, the single-celled organisms, we needed the Earth to have the capacity for the seas to breathe, for the tides to move in and out. And there was not a moon, but this planetoid struck the Earth with a tremendous amount of force and knocked a chunk of the Earth off. And that chunk went into orbit and stabilized the Earth's orbit and created the circulation of the oceans. Incredibly fortunate moment, right? These things continued to happen. The very first organisms were feeding off of material that was coming up from the seafloor. The ocean was very warm, and this food was rising, right? And these first single-celled organisms for billions of years were eating these particular foods that were coming up from the Earth. And all of a sudden, as the Earth cooled, the food started to disappear. So what did the organisms do? There was no food. All life was going to vanish from the Earth. One single-celled organism, the first one, what did it do? It captured a photon from the sun and turned it into food. Very creative, right? We have some creative ancestors. And then, through some weird phenomena where these little fruiting bodies come out, it communicated that process to all the other single-celled organisms, and they all started eating sunlight. Those were the first photosynthesizers. Well, what is a byproduct of photosynthesis?
Carbon dioxide?
Oxygen. So all of a sudden, we started reaching critical oxygen levels in the atmosphere that would basically create a conflagration. One lightning storm, the planet would go up in flames. The oxygen level was getting so concentrated that it was going to destroy the Earth. Then what happened? Then one of these organisms that was metabolizing sunlight just decided to start eating other organisms, because to eat another organism, you need oxygen. So they started to pull the oxygen out of the atmosphere by eating each other. And those are the ancestors of the animals, and those are the ancestors of the plants, by the way, just so you know. But these kind of creative things happen within matter, and it's fascinating to observe. So I'm kind of wondering, what causes this creative organization of matter? We're at this moment right now where the planet is coming unglued, the great unraveling, and across the globe, hundreds of thousands of organizations are springing up, grassroots organizations. Paul Hawken, in a beautiful book called Blessed Unrest, says it's the Earth's autoimmune system. People all over the planet are becoming awake to crises and converting. I always ask people in a room like this, especially adults, are you parenting differently than your parents parented you? Anybody? Raise your hand if you are. It's pretty much across the board. But if you ask your grandparents that, they might say, doing it just like my parents did, which was for generation after generation. But something's shifting pretty quickly. And so, again, we're facing crisis, and matter is self-organizing itself to face crisis. I really believe that. So we align ourselves with these changes, and that's a commitment we make as human beings.